In many cases, when people hear the term AI, they immediately think of robots and not chatbots or things inside of a computer. But while a lot of the software inside robots does feature some basic AI, the explosion of generative AI technologies means that in the future, we'll see smarter robots than ever before. But will this happen before we see software-based robots in the form of avatars on our screens? We're going to talk with one of the leaders in the space developing new types of avatars and robots on this episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Jerome Monceau. He is founder and CEO of Enchanted Tools, coming to us from Paris, France. Welcome to the show, Jerome.
Hello.
All right. So during the course of this discussion, you can bring up Enchanted Tools and what they do, but I want to frame the discussion around robots, generative AI, and some of these avatar things that we're seeing. For my first question is, one of the big debates that you see in the robotic space is whether robots should look like humans or even like, animals or things like that, and we equate it to this R2-D2 versus C-3PO debate where, you have from Star Wars, one of the robots looks like a trash can, and the other one looks like a human. So there's this big debate about, whether robots in the future should be, if they'll be more accepted if they look more like us, or is it better if they look like an appliance, like a toaster? Where do you fall in the spectrum? Because it feels like you're more on the side of humans, but not necessarily replicating humans exactly, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I think about that is that first, robots are characters. So then we need to design the characters. I mean, most of situation, roboticists are not designing the character. So when I created that company, the first thing that I've done is working with animation movie experts and telling them I want to create a character robot and how should it be. And we invent movie, we invent story, we try to invent the life of that characters, and then we start to implement it as a robot. And that's why, from my point of view, it's like movie animation. They should not be human. They should be a view of what a character could be. So sometimes it could be a cat, sometimes it could be an actual robot, sometimes it could be an animals. And the question is do we want something that look like us? Do we want to be all the time afraid, not necessarily afraid, but surprised by how much a robot can look like us? Or do we want to live with something that is different, that have a story, and that could behave in a way that could not be expected too much by humans? You know.
Well, so why do you feel like that a character-driven robot, or whether it's a humanoid-looking one, or whether it's a cute and fuzzy animal, like what is the reasoning behind why you would want a robot to look like that versus something that's more either industrial or more like a toaster? Like what's the reasoning behind your feeling on that? There's something about user expectation. When you see a robot that look like us, you expect the robot being able to see the world like you and do exactly the same as you. But robots are not ready to do such a thing. And necessarily they are seeing the world in another manners, like a dog or like another animal. You have to discover what they can do and what they cannot do. So the challenge was to design the character in order to match with the actual level of AI and robots. So then people have to discover and they won't over expect things that the robot can or cannot do. You see, so that's why the animals is very interesting in that way, because a dog cannot talk, a dog cannot understand everything we are talking about, but it can do things that we can't. On trying to define a species that it's coming with its own relation to the world and the own capabilities to perceive things was a smart move
from what I've seen right now.
Right. Okay, so I want to jump into a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now with the generative artificial intelligence technologies. It seems like within the last couple of years, it took a lot of the spotlight away from robotics, because roboticists, they've been working on developing AI software for many years, mainly through machine learning and deep learning technologies. So this generative AI kind of came out out of nowhere, for at least for a lot of the general mainstream people that have been following it. I'm sure that within the AI space, they've known about this for many years. But I've only seen a couple of examples where roboticists are trying to integrate generative AI technologies that are in computers with an actual physical robot, so that your new robot could act more like a physical version of that chatbot. Is this valuable down the road, or are there more challenges that companies would face by integrating those two technologies?
Yeah. So first of all, as you may know, I was a leader of development of two well-known robots who are now a small humanoid bipedal robot, and another one. The name is Pepper.
Yep.
And at that time, we didn't got generative AI. And the point is, how can we create a robot that could be interesting enough during 3 years or 4 years? So we got to develop a lot of application and a lot of content to make this robot interesting all the time. And honestly, I think it has not been fully achieved. We have done some great content, so the robot was cool during a couple of months, but that was not enough at all.
Yeah.
And the point is that we cannot approach a robot like a smartphone. It's not just a platform on which you are putting application. It's something that should generate its own application. So that's why generative AI totally changed the game of a robot, and more specifically, humanoid robot, because the robot can become a generative robot. It can answer to actual situations that are not predicted by developers. So the content basically is infinite. And on the other side, we also needed a tool that could represent in a unique space things that are coming from different situation. Like if you see somebody walking, if somebody asks you to walk, if you walk, that's three things that are different: perception, semantics, and action.
Yeah.
And in the way we got before, these three was totally separated. And that was really difficult to create some consistent behavior due to that. So with generative AI, we can transcript what the robot is seeing, what the robot is doing, and what the robot is listening into one unique representation. And this is why Gen AI is so powerful for us.
Right. It feels like that a robot in the physical space wouldn't, if they had generative AI technologies inside this robot, they could answer any question in the world, but it doesn't become useful unless they can then also show you something in that physical space. So I keep thinking of a robot at a museum, and where someone would go up to that robot and go, "Hey, where is the Picasso section?" And then instead of just saying, putting it on a map on the screen, the robot could say, "Follow me, and I'll take you to the Picasso section." Or in the grocery store, it's like, "Hey, where are the Cocoa Pebbles or the cereal aisle?" And they, you could get. Because what you're seeing right now is maybe some generative AI that would give you a map, but then you're still looking at a map on a phone. There's that physical aspect to it, and I just don't see that happening yet. But could that happen down in the future, or are there too many challenges? And I've got a couple of ideas on challenges too.
Yeah, there is a dream that is coming with generative AI about robots that we call end-to-end model. So it's a model that could be trained not only on text, not only on image, but also on movement or on sensors, on so much things like that. So then the robot can fully understand what's happening around and fully understand what it can do in that context. But it will be a very long development, and at the same time, everything about planification, sequence of action is not well solved by deep neural networks. We know that we need other tools to do that properly.
Yeah.
So the point that we have now for the next 5 years, from my point of view, is to balance what could be done now with generative AI with what the robot can actually do, and with what the user can understand understand about what this robot can do and not do. Let me take an example. If you are in a shop, there is so much product like that, and some of us could be hidden somewhere. How could you expect a robot to know where are the hidden products?
Right.
It cannot solve everything. So we have to make things clear for user too.
Right. And from a technical standpoint, is it too hard to get a lot of that AI processing on the robots currently, or are they okay? Where you don't necessarily need a cloud connection? Where again, what are you seeing from maybe the companies like NVIDIA? Do they have enough processing where you can start doing this on the hardware locally, or do they still need a big network connection?
Yeah, that's of course a very good question. One thing is sure is that embedded CPU are more strategic than before. In what we call the bill of material, which is the cost of the robot, we increase the size of the weight of the CPU embedded. But still, it's still not enough. Even if we have two of them and GPUs and things, it's still not enough to run a powerful model. So we are working on hybridation between local and cloud computing. The point is to keep the robot consistent when there is no connection, but when there is this cloud connection, it can extend the capabilities and do other things. But we need a minimal subset that is running on board with small language model, for instance, and many other algorithms.
Yeah, because it feels like you wouldn't necessarily want to put a general GPT type of system on one of these robots, that you're going to start seeing smaller large language models, or they're going to grab data sets that are specific to whatever task you want that robot to perform, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point is to keep the robot consistent in the user interaction.
Yeah.
So people should not be surprised how the robot behaves because there is no connection. We need to keep that consistent.
Right. You want to make sure that if I ask you to take me to the cereal aisle, that it takes me to the cereal aisle and not like, produce or vegetables, right?
Exactly, and but if people ask the robot to talk about Freud or I don't know which philosopher, then they can understand that I'm not connected right now. I could answer to your question later, but this is not my job because my job is cereal.
Oh, okay, yeah. So build that into the system, right? Yeah. So in general, are roboticists that you talk with, in the space, are they generally excited about generative AI, or do they see it? Do they see the potential, or are they just be like, yeah, that's going to be more of a computer thing and a smartphone thing, and it's not necessarily going to be. We're going to still focus on our deep learning and machine learning algorithms without having to go to generative AI. Like, how excited are they about this?
Yeah.
It feels like you are.
So. Yeah, as you know, GPT is not. We didn't wait ChatGPT to understand what could be done with a deep neural network. So roboticists are working since long on that generative algorithm because it changed the way the robot could learn, and we don't have to program everything. And the world is changing all the time, so we need a machine that could adapt to this change. So that's why everybody are very excited by generative AI. And as I said, the fact that OpenAI, but also Anthropic and so many algorithms are coming, make things feasible right now because we have a tool that is running at scale with the right performance that could be used to improve the robot behavior. So everybody I know are very excited about that. The question is more about what could we really expect from that technology in middle term?
Yeah. So is that the biggest challenge right now? Then is getting from that point A to point B?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Well, is the challenge where you see what could happen, but then you have to figure out how to get to that point where you see that vision, and it seems like a lot of the generative AI people are struggling too, because you have all of this hype around the technology about what it could do, but we're not there yet, and so it's more about the difficult journey to get there that is troubling some people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and my personal challenge is to define a user experience with the robot that is fun, that is engaging, that make people understand what the robot can do and cannot do, and still balance with what is achievable now and with a very good user experience. That and not so much roboticists are talking about user experience this time.
Yeah. And so I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing at Enchanted Tools. Your goal is to create what you call a post-robot era, where you're combining the creativity of animation experts and industrial designers to create a lore around your characters that you're creating. And again, I apologize if I get this pronunciation wrong. You've created the Mirokai, which is a species driven by advanced technology and genuine altruism. And again, this makes it seems like that the characters are more alien rather than robots, but they are a robot in the sense of they can do things for you. So why do you feel like that this alien is something that could work more with humans rather than just a typical, your typical standard robot that might look like C-3PO, for example?
Yeah. So first of all, as I said at the beginning, humanoid robots are characters. So it's like if characters from a movie or from a game are jumping from its reality to our reality. Imagine having a character from your favorite movie living with you right now in front of you, and you can interact, you can dance, you can do things with such a robot. So it's a way to bring the story of the movie exactly in the place where people are living. And for a long time, you can live with a movie for, 1 year or 2 years. So that's why I'm so much excited by this point of view. And humanoid robot is not just a question of roboticists. It's also a question of psychology, storytelling, movie expert, and so on, because we want to provide an experience to people, make them happy, make them exciting, give them an adventure. And it could be at home, but it could be also in a shop or in an hospital or in elderly houses or for kids. There's so much way to use this artificial character in real life to improve the life of people,
Right. Is part of it because of a potential fear that people have of robots, whether it's, because there's stories all over the place about, robots are going to take my job and robots are bad. And, you get science fiction movies where robots are taking over the world and they're threatening looking. Is part of that to help allay those fears? And just say, look, robots are here to help us. And there's a little bit of it where a human might not treat a robot badly if it's a friendly looking and happy looking character, right? It feels worse for me to yell at that type of a thing rather than a trash can or a toaster.
But first of all, everything about the storytelling is an ethical approach of humanoid robot design. Some people think that the robot is aware of himself, is designed by himself, think what he wants to think, totally free, totally autonomous. But what I think is that a robot is designed by people. And here we have artists that are designing the story, designing the robot in order to give people an experience. Right. Like a movie, you have a producer, you have a realizator, you have people that are creating a movie to give something to the other humans. So that exactly is the way we are designing the robot. And we choose that character to be, we wanted that character being different, coming from another planet, because we didn't want people to expect something. We didn't want them to over-expect what the robot can do and how we could see that. And trying to manage curiosity about how we could see the world, what it can do, and discovering. And at the same time, the alien, the robot, the Mirokai, can discover humanity and have a pure point of view on what we are as a human on our planet,
Yeah. So with the Mirokai, do you have a physical version of that robot currently, or are you working on developing it?
Of course.
Okay, but you also have
20 of them.
Yeah, and okay, so but then you also have them on computer screens, correct? Like you can interact with these.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so there is a software component as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
the point we are going. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We are going to do some show about that, which is that you can interact with the digital character that is designed as a cartoon, actually. So he can talk to you, he can react to you, he can see you, and so on. And then sometimes this character is jumping into the reality, into an actual real robot.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking of is that this concept could also be applied to generative AIs with avatar creation. We're seeing some companies out there that they scan my face, for example, and then they create an AI version of me, not for any nefarious. Obviously, there's nefarious purposes that happen with deepfakes and things like that, but also there's some positive ones where people can take an AI avatar of themselves and become a chat bot. And things like that. And so a lot of the chatbots that we see are of real people, or they're still human looking. But I'm wondering, like, why haven't we seen a lot of AI avatars out there that are with this idea of either an alien or an animal, a talking bear, types of things like that? Are we going to be having a similar debate about what AI avatars should look like? Should they look like real people? Should they look like just a human, or should they look like a talking bear? Is there any discussion about this, or is it just going to be like they're just going to flood the market, and then whatever people gravitate to is what's going to be the standard?
Yeah, we see a lot of real human avatar running with generative AI more and more. But honestly, personally, I don't like this because most of the time they're ugly, and we have the uncanny valley things. And I'm much more. We are launching a digital character running in a car. In a French car manufacturer named Renault. So they have a character inside the cockpit, and that character interact with the user, interact with the driver and passenger, and they give them a good experience about that. And we choose designing something that is not human, very active, very happy, very lively, and with accessories and stuff, because we want people to have fun, We want them to smile, to be happy to enter the car and live something that is different than what they live otherwise, So that's why we don't want to, I don't want to create a real human stuff. It should be fun and a happy character, and not a sad one, very serious.
Yeah, I suppose my AI avatar would probably be happier than the real Keith. I would hope, because again, the avatar version of me would not have the same kind of problems that I have. But again, it's an interesting concept of what would be more accepted by humans, seeing another face or just seeing a digital animated character. So it feels like we're going to go in that direction that you're working on.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, anything else that's going on, Jerome, that we didn't touch on? I think I do think that the future will be kind of a mixture of both. Is that where you're seeing the market headed?
Yeah. So in the big news, we will be in California in a couple of months, in October. And we will do a TEDx there about AI, and we are going to show everything about what we are working on.
Yeah.
And we are opening a building here in Paris, so where we can welcome people. So people who didn't came to the Olympic Games can visit what we are doing, our factory and everything. You are very welcome, of course.
Is this something that's happening in the near term? Like with, you'll start seeing these next year, or is it going to be a couple of years down the road where we're going to start seeing more and more of these characters?
So our plan is to produce hundreds of robots in 2025 and thousands of robots starting in 2026. So we are on the way to increase. And as you know, now On Paper has been sold, we sold 40,000 units. So I expect to do 3 times what I have done before. So basically minimum of 100,000 units over 10 years.
Very cool. Very cool. Jerome Montsou, thanks again for joining us on the show. Some really cool stuff that you're working on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.